Hello everybody and welcome back to IndySportsCrew.com. I'm Thad Van Devener, and tonight I want to talk about a little bit of a preview to Game 3 Pacers Magic in the first round of the NBA Eastern Conference playoffs. The Pacers won last night to even up the series 1-1, which was obviously a huge win for them at home. You can't go down 0-2 losing the first two games at home. The Pacers were a lot better at home in that second game. The first game, they just let it slip away, couldn't make a basket in the final 4 minutes. Some people call it a choke job. It was just like a gag. They just could not find it. Granger missed a couple free throws late, missed a short bunny off the glass. They just wouldn't go down for him. So to get that win last night and even the series was a big thing for them. But there's three big things, three big keys I'm looking for in Game 3 as they move the series to Orlando that I think are going to be key, not only for Game 3, but as both games in Orlando, to see if the Pacers can seize control of the series and bring it back to Indianapolis, possibly up 3-1 if things go the right way. The first thing is the Pacers' defense. Now, in the first two games, even though the Magic have won a game, in the first two games they've scored 81 points in Game 1 and only 78 points in Game 2. So obviously, the Pacers' defense is keeping the Magic in check pretty well. In Game 1, the Pacers themselves just couldn't find the bucket. But obviously, in two games to hold them at an average of 80.5 points, that's pretty solid defense that you're playing right there. And one of the big keys from Game 1 to Game 2 was limiting them on the screen and roll. And what I'm looking at is that Hibbert matchup. With Roy Hibbert in there, he kind of struggles a little bit on the screen and roll. He's not as mobile. He is a big guy, and it seems like the Pacers had a little bit more success in that defending the screen and roll when it was Tyler Hansbrough or Lou Amundsen or even David West sometimes. And so I think that'll be a key, because Hibbert, he matches up very well against Big Baby Davis on offense, not as well on defense when they're running those screen and rolls with Davis and Jameer Nelson. And not only does that open up Davis, but sometimes it'll open up, it's not just the first pass, but the second pass when he swings it and they're making open threes, which we all know the Magic can do. They're the #1 three-point shooting team in the NBA this year. The second biggest thing is the Pacers scoring. And, we talked about Game 1, they just couldn't find it, couldn't find a rhythm, couldn't find a flow. In Game 2, especially in that third quarter, they really got it rolling. George Hill and Paul George were keys in that. And those are the guys you have to look for if you're the Pacers to keep consistent scoring. It's George Hill, it's Paul George, and it's Leandro Barbosa coming in off the bench. If those guys can continue to score efficiently and effectively, that's a great way for the Pacers to take a big advantage on the Magic, because the Magic second team unit does not compare to the Pacers second team unit. Now, although J.J. Redick came off the bench and had a nice game in Game 2, overall, the Pacers have more firepower coming in off the bench with Barbosa and Hansbrough and Amundsen and even Darren Collison now coming off the bench. They have more weapons over there, so that's something that's going to be key, because Granger and West have shown that they're very consistent, and Hibbert's been consistent in the first two games, and he's had double-figure rebounds in both games, which he probably should, matching up with Big Baby Davis that we talked about earlier. But those three guys, Hill, George, Barbosa, very, very key for the Pacers as they go to Orlando. And the third thing is jumping out early. In the first two games at home, the Pacers were able to jump out early, get a big lead, couldn't hold it in either game. In the second quarter of Game 2, the Pacers just let that slide away and went into halftime trailing. It's going to be key when you're on the road at Orlando, which it's not the toughest environment they've ever faced or they're going to face if they move forward in the playoffs. But Orlando does have a good home court advantage there. So if you're able to jump out early and sustain that lead, maybe not, coast to a 15-point victory, but if you're ahead and you don't allow the home court fans to get fully involved, that's a big thing for you, and it gives you confidence. If the crowd's raucous and they're going crazy, it makes it a lot tougher on the road team. But if you can get out early and sustain a lead, even if it's marginal, 3, 4, 5 points, if you're ahead, it keeps them in check, and it gives you a better chance to win the game down the stretch. So those are the big three things I'm looking for in Game 3 and Game 4 in Orlando, and we'll see if the Pacers can come back with a big advantage when they bring it back to Indianapolis next Tuesday on the 8th. Thanks again for coming to IndySportsCrew.com, and we'll see you again later.